Okay, so I thought I was done with this, but I guess not. Oh, wait, no. Huh? Okay, that makes total sense. And God was a just God, and the one who's created slavery was man. God had no part in that. I totally agree with you on that. That's a lie. There are at least 7 passages in the Bible where God is specifically as permitting endorsing slavery. 2 of these are in the law of Moses, but slavery is to be positively in scripture well beyond these commands. Owning slaves is seen as a sign of God's blessing. This is 12. Did you just copy and paste the same comment as you did the last video? Did you really just copy and paste this? This is like the same comment you had in the last. Okay, so let's get into this. Okay, so the first thing we're gonna address is Pornhub, and look at that. Wow, prostitution. Wow, wow. Okay, that's funny. Here on Pornhub, discover the growing collection of high quality, most relevant XXX movies and clips. Okay, so here's what I want to talk to you about. This is actually really ironic and funny. So, we talk about in the Bible how God condones slavery because, he has regulations for it. Let me explain this really quickly to you, and then we'll get to the Pornhub and gambling and other stuff like that. So, main camera here. So, in the Bible, there are plenty of times which I'm going to actually address this because I'm not about to let this slide. This guy pasted the same comment as he did last time, and I'm going to address this because I addressed every single thing in here in the last video. So I guess he just didn't watch anything I said at all, but I addressed every one of these claims. The first one I'm going to address here is that having slaves is looked up upon. It's actually a blessing from God. He says that this is present in Genesis when this is specifically Abram at the time he's called. Abram is in Egypt. When Abram's in Egypt, his wife is beautiful. I don't know how beautiful his wife was, but clearly he was beautiful enough to the point of where he feared that he would be killed because people knew he was married to her and they wanted her as a wife. So what happened was the Pharaoh tried to take her as a wife. When the Pharaoh tried to take her as a wife, guess what happened? God didn't like that. Now at the same time, he didn't like the fact that he was also being deceitful. Abram should have told him that was his wife, but he was being deceitful. He told her, "I'm his brother. I'm her brother. Yeah, that's my sister." So Abram's wife was almost turned into a concubine. His wife was almost turned into a concubine, a prostitute. And God was not going to allow that because he had a plan with Abram. He made a covenant with Abram. He was going to keep it, even though he didn't like the fact that Abram was being deceitful. So what Pharaoh did was he gave him slaves. Pharaoh gave him slaves after he found out that he was about to marry someone's wife. And the God of this world told him, "You're not going to do that at all. And if you do, I'm going to punish you for it." So guess what? He's like, "You know what? I don't want any bad terms with you because I know if anything bad happens to you, your God's gonna punish me for that. So here, take these riches, take these camels, take these slaves, and you're good." And then later on in Genesis, when Abram, who has a son, he wants his son to marry a wife who's going to be good and who's going to follow the Lord and fear God, right? He wants his son to marry in a close relation because he doesn't want his son marrying all the people out there who are doing other crazy immoral things. So he sends his servant to go fetch a wife for his son through people he knows. So he does that. When the servant goes to fetch the wife, one of the brothers sees the servant and says, "Oh my gosh, this is Abram, the guy that God blessed with slaves." No, God didn't bless him with slaves. It's just the guy mistaking God blessing him for slaves for the fact that Pharaoh actually gave him slaves. Now, Abram could have given them up a long time ago, but Abram, he kept them. He kept them. Now, I'm going to assume that when Abram kept them, he wasn't being abusive to them because the Bible doesn't make note of any of them trying to run away. At the same time, like, were they his property? Yeah, but in the same way, your boss's property. When I go to my job, I do whatever my boss tells me to do unless I don't want to get paid. Again, the regulation that God had in place, these people weren't to be treated as property. They would be treated as workers because that's what they were supposed to be doing. Like, the slavery practice in Egypt is the reason why God freed them. Again, this doesn't make sense. Like, people clearly don't read the Bible. Like, regulation is not the same as condoning. And here's a big thing, too. When you're trying to change society for something that's normal, like, again, slavery was normal. Slavery was never something introduced by God. Slavery was something that man created on their own. Man made slavery. That wasn't something God ever did. God never said, "Oh, you should own this person." That was something people always did. God never blessed anyone with slaves. There is a whole book in the Bible about that goes against the idea of slavery. It's called Philemon. It's one of the shortest books in the Bible, but it's still a book in the Bible. Philemon. I'm going to zoom through this at the speed of sound. Philemon 1. Let's just do Philemon. Like Philemon, the book. Paul, a prisoner of Christ Jesus, and Timothy, our brother. To Philemon, our beloved friend and fellow laborer, to the beloved Archippus, I don't remember that name. But anyway, our fellow soldier, and the church in your house. Grace to you and peace from your Father, peace from God our Father and the Lord Jesus Christ. I thank my God, making mention of you always in my prayers, hearing of your love and faith which you have toward the Lord Jesus and toward all the saints, that sharing of your faith may become effective by the in Christ Jesus. For we have great joy and consolation in your love, because the hearts of the saints have been refreshed by you. Therefore, though I might be, and let's just get the main important part. The plea for Onesimus. Therefore, I thought I might be very bold in Christ to command you what is fitting. Yet for love's sake, I rather appeal to you. Remember this phrase. Being such as one, as Paul, the aged, and now also a prisoner of Jesus Christ, I appeal to you for my son Onesimus, whom I have begotten while in my chains, who was once unprofitable to you, but now is profitable to you and me. I am sending him back to you. You therefore receive him that is in my own heart, who I wish to keep with me, that on your behalf he might minister to me in my chains for the gospel. But without your consent, I want to do nothing. That your good deed might not be by compulsion, as it were, but voluntary. This entire verse is pointing to the fact that from the beginning, God did not want us to treat people that way because we're made in his image. Why would God want you to treat someone that was made in his image that way? At all. No, I don't know where the frick you got this BS fact that all slavery in the Bible that occurred was only the slavery you see that occurred like 300 years ago with African Americans, people who look like me. I don't know where you got this from. Slavery was extremely common. Now, there are people who abuse their slaves 100%. There are people who just didn't abuse their slaves. Again, people sold themselves into slavery. People did that. And again, not every connotation of slavery was evil. And I shouldn't say, and let me say this, you shouldn't own a person, but at the end of the day, if you are working for someone, you are their property because they're paying you to do something. That is how that works. Now, at the end of the day, does that mean that they can do whatever you want? No, absolutely not. Just because your dog is your property doesn't mean you can abuse it and beat it and like treat it like a freaking piece of trash. There are a lot of things in this world that are our property and we're meant to treat them right. Your children are your property because they are your children and you take care of them. Do you get to abuse? No, absolutely not. You treat your children with respect because those are your children and they're made in your image. So if you're treating, God bless if you're treating your children with disrespect. But anyway, even beyond that, this whole entire book of the Bible isn't even a long one, and it's completely amplifying what God thinks of slavery, that it's wrong. But unfortunately, we as humans are evil. We're super evil. So we're going to do things even that God tells us not to do. God tells us in the Bible to not have sex outside of marriage. Guess what? We do it anyway. And in Deuteronomy, he made a whole bunch of regulations in the case that they did do it. And the reason why God made regulations instead of just outright saying it was wrong was one, because it wouldn't have mattered if he said it was wrong, but two, also because these regulations were to help them understand these aren't slaves as in slaves like property. These are people that are just working. Again, people would sell themselves into slavery. They would sell themselves to other people into slavery so they could make money. It was a simple practice back then. It wasn't a great practice, but it was a simple one. It was across the world. And by the time Jesus was alive, it was still being practiced. By the time Paul was alive, it was still being practiced. Like, people weren't trying to give this up. Again, this entire book is to show, and I'm gonna just read it because it's better if I just read it, unless you just can't read. I am sending him back to you, therefore receive him, that it is my own heart, who I wish to keep with me, that on your behalf he might minister to me in my change for the gospel. But without your consent, without your consent, I wanted to do nothing. So without your consent, I didn't want to just free him. I wanted you to do it because you knew it was the right thing to do, not because I'm forcing you, but because you knew it was the right thing to do. God doesn't want us to just do stuff because he wants us to do it because we understand it's the right thing to do. What good is it to force someone to do something? As soon as you stop forcing them, they're just going to start doing what they're doing again. Jesus wanted, and God wanted, through Jesus, to show us that slavery is inherently wrong because we're made in the image of God. Abraham Lincoln understood that. Guess what? Guess where Abraham Lincoln got that from? Guess. I wonder. Anyway, even beyond that, making this really simple and really quick so we can get to the second part of this, which I'm going to enjoy so much. So much, since we want to talk about how regulation is the same as condoning something. But anyway, if then you count me as a partner, receive him as you would. But if he has wronged you or owes you anything, put on my account. Put that on my account. I, Paul, am writing to you with my own hand. I will pay, not to mention to you that you owe me even in your own self besides. Yes, brother, let me have joy from you in the Lord. Refresh my heart, my Lord. Having confidence in your obedience, I write to you knowing that you will do even more than I say. But meanwhile, also prepare a guest room for me, for I trust that through your prayers, I shall be granted to you. He is telling Philemon to free Onesimus because he knows that's not how God intended for man to be treated. And again, mind you, God never introduced slavery. That was something people did all on their own. That's something we as humans inherently wanted to do to each other for some bizarre reason. I don't know why. I don't know why, but we do. And here's another thing. If God just didn't regulate it, how bad do you think slavery would be today? Seriously, how bad do you think it would be today? It'd be worse than it is now. And here's the thing, slavery is still practiced in many countries. And a lot of these countries aren't God-fearing, so that's something to note. Again, we want to dog on God, but God is the reason why a lot of the stuff we enjoy in America is the way it is. Like, seriously, if you look at most of the laws we have in America, they're coming from the Bible. They are taking complete inspiration from the Bible. Our morals come from God. We just don't want to admit it. We've just gone so far down the line that we've forgotten where they came from. But did we really? Did we really? Not all of us. Anyway, long story short story, simply put, God intended for humans to inherently know what they were doing was wrong so they would stop doing it, not just trying to force them, which is what he did for every single one of the rules he made for us. He doesn't just tell us how to do it, he tells us why it's wrong. He shows why it's wrong. He tries to change our hearts, not just tell us, okay, try to tell someone to stop smoking. You're going to have a difficult time. Try to tell an entire society to stop smoking without putting any regulations down. Try to tell an entire society to stop smoking altogether, to stop doing drugs, to stop drinking, to stop prostitution without regulating it. I want to see how far you get. And here's the thing. God could free every slave he wanted to with the snap of his fingers. Is that the point? No. The point is that he's trying to change our hearts so we don't even want to inherently do that to people because we shouldn't want to. We shouldn't want to. And clearly it's working because the people in the comments who responded to me, who at this point I don't even know why I'm talking to you guys, but anyway, you responded to me, you understand that now. People back then didn't understand that. That was common day practice. Now we understand that's wrong. And that's thanks to God. Which it's sad that, like, again, God doesn't want to have to tell us how to do everything the right way. We should inherently know some things based off of what he's taught us. Your parents hope that based off what they taught you, you will learn to do other things, right? God is hoping that based off the fact that he told us that every life has inherent value, we're not going to sit there and enslave people and treat them wrongly as that. Like, I don't understand how you can read that and just say that God clearly condones slavery. There is a point in the Bible, Genesis, where Joseph's brothers sell him into slavery. And later on, guess what Joseph says? Which you intended for evil, God intended for good. I just can't understand how you can read the Bible and just think that God condones that. Like, at all. Especially because there's a whole book in the Bible where Paul is saying that what he's doing is wrong. And instead of telling him what he's doing is wrong, he needs to stop. He wants him to hear that it's wrong, and then from that point on, do it on his own free will, to stop doing evil. What good is it if God has to tell us to stop doing stuff every time? What good is that? Seriously. Do you stop having sex outside of marriage because God told you to? No, you don't. And the reason why you don't is because your heart isn't changed. Your heart still thinks, I don't want to stop doing that. It's fine. It's normal. I can do it if I want to. You have to have your heart changed to stop doing some things, unfortunately. And that's how a lot of people are. You can't just tell someone to stop smoking. You have to tell them why. You have to convince them. You have to put regulations like, hey, you're not going to smoke as much. Now you're not going to smoke at all. And guess what? Imagine doing that to an entire society that thinks that's normal and that treats it as everyday occurrence and common practice. Now, let's move on to what America condones. One of the biggest things America, and I shouldn't say condones, but actually no, they do condone it because they regulate it. They condone it because they regulate it. One of the things America condones, which, again, really, really funny, prostitution. Now, I'm not going to go to images for the sake of, I don't want to see that. But anyway, as I was saying, America condones prostitution. No, we don't. We don't condone prostitution. Yes, we do. Yes, we do. Yeah, we do. Prostitution is when you pay a woman, or anyone really, but obviously it's mainly women in this case, unfortunately, for sexual acts. Guess what Pornhub does? Matter of fact, I've watched a lot of interviews of people who used to be porn stars. One of the things they always talk about is the fact that they don't feel safe there. They're promised that they're going to make a lot of money, they're going to be super successful, but they're often extremely uncomfortable during this entire process. Yeah, they talk about the fact that they have to shoot the same scenes hopefully not hundreds, God bless, tens of 20s of 30s of times, multiple times, and they're in pain doing this. And we're told if they don't do it, they'll never get a job again, and they'll start losing money and they'll become successful, and they'll have to get a 9-to-5 at McDonald's. You don't believe me? Watch it. And again, if you don't think we condone it, They make money off of this. They're paid to do it. They have sets where they go and perform these things. OnlyFans exist, and a lot of other places exist that condone this and regulate it, right? But again, if you were to, and here's the thing, the porn company makes the most money in the world. The porn industry makes more money than any industry in the world. The same way slavery probably made more money in the world. Now, unfortunately, for some reason, we haven't come as, a people together to say that we should stop prostitution altogether. We should stop paying people to sell their bodies online. We should stop paying people to watch other people naked and have sex. But we regulate it. And we regulate it because we know if we don't, worse things will happen. So God regulated slavery because he knew if he didn't, people would do worse. And here's the thing. With regulation, there's also punishment if you don't go by the regulations. There are people who fish, and when they fish, there's regulations. They can't just fish every fish in the pond and then call it a good day. No, they have to fish within a certain regulation. These people have to record prostitution porn videos, which that's what it is. This is a little category. This is literally a category of videos, where they have to come within a certain regulation. Otherwise, they don't make money off of it. So this regulation is set so not everyone and their mother is practicing it and thinking it's normal, because it's not. Gambling is something else we regulate. But, I guess we condone that too. Gambling is legal under federal law. There are significant restrictions pertaining to interstate and online gambling. Yeah. Okay, yeah. And again, that's why you have people having to ban unverified content from Pornhub. And the reason why it's unverified is because they don't know the terms on which those videos are made. In other words, they don't know if those terms follow the regulations of prostitution that are current in America. Or just on Pornhub in this case. So, again, I plead you to use the common sense that God is trying to gift you, but it keeps on missing, apparently. And use your head. Let's read one more time what's going on here. Let's see. 7 passages. Again, if you watched the previous video, I completely debunked all of these. I don't know why this guy posted the same thing twice. Like, this is literally bar for bar the exact same video. This is literally bar for bar the exact same thing he posted in a previous video. Like, this is unbelievable. Like, this is unthinkable. Like, he didn't even go through the work of trying to. I know this too because I got my hair retwisted, and you can see how clear my hair looks supposed to now because it's frizzy now because it's starting to grow again. But I can tell because one, my mustache is darker here because I recently shaved it. Right? Recently shaved it, and it's growing back now. It's much thicker here. My hair is done. I need to get it redone and retwisted soon. So this person completely was disingenuous and didn't even try to go through the work of trying to make another, like, and I know this because he originally commented in this video the same thing. The exact same thing. Like, seriously? And again, slaves can be beaten. Okay, I'll answer this right now. Slaves can be taken as concubines. Genesis 16:3-4, Exodus. Sure, we'll go over these right now. So the first thing, Genesis, where it says slaves can be beaten. Right, you're reading that as slaves can be beaten. That's what you're reading that as, but that's not what it said. What it specifically said, which I'll go to it. Okay, let's read this. Exodus 21. I don't know why I had such a hard time finding this. So it does not say beat your slaves. It says, and if a man beats his male servant with a rod. Now, again, when you read previously in, this is Exodus. Oh my gosh, bro. If you literally just read Exodus. So one understanding that people had back then was an eye for an eye. So if you were to hit anyone or beat anyone, they could do the same to you that you just did to them. And then one of the things that I also mentioned in this specific chapter, I'll read it. If a man beats his male or female servant with a rod so that he dies under his hand, he shall be surely be punished, right? So this is complete. This is so that you don't murder people, because that's what that is. It's murder. If you beat someone to death and they die, you murder them. Now, if you didn't murder them, then you don't need to be killed. But at the end of the day, this man is still going to be punished. Like, you can't read this and think that God would just not punish this person for doing this. This is to protect slaves, because God knew people were evil. We are evil. Look at today. We still practice slavery in other countries. We still let prostitution go on. We still like it. Like, people watch that. So people watch it and they enjoy it. Like, seriously, bro, use your brain. And if a man, it doesn't say you can beat your slave. This is, and if a man does, because God knows it will happen. Like, oh my gosh, I don't understand how you can, like, just read this in good conscience and say, oh yeah, God clearly doesn't care about people. Like, again, there are plenty of books in the Bible that say, that show and tell otherwise. This is so you don't just go around murdering people. There's even a verse later on in Exodus that specifically talks about the fact, here's what the verse says. When you first read the verse, this is what it says. It says this: if you find a man robbing your house or entering your house at nighttime, you were able to kill him, right? You were able to murder him because he's in your house and he's unwarranted. If it's daytime, you are not allowed to kill him because during the daytime, it's easy to tell who he is. It's also very clear that during daytime, he's not going to get away without people noticing that he's done something. So if you murder him, you are unjust in doing that because 1, you can tell the nature of what he's in there for. 2, you know that he probably won't have a weapon. Like, again, oh my gosh, but like, it's just read it. And if you have questions, just look it up. Like, you know how disingenuous that is? Seriously. This is just so disingenuous. You're not even going through the effort of, you're just reading and saying, oh, that's what he means. There's something called discernment, which you clearly don't have. Discernment isn't even a Christian thing. It's just a common sense thing. It's, for example, like, there's a story in the Bible where Potiphar's wife, what she does is this. This is what she does, right? In the Bible, Potiphar's wife wants to have sex with Joseph because she's just attracted to him. Clearly Joseph was handsome enough that she wanted to have sex with him. So what she does is that she continuously tries to seduce him. He says, I'm not going to sleep with you because my master's been good to me, and he has treated me well. Now, he was a slave at this time. He had not been beaten. He had not been abused. He was a slave, though. Like, he worked under him. He worked under Potiphar, and he worked for him, and he made money, and he had gotten to a high enough position, but he was still a slave. That's what they were considered back then. Again, people think that's every bit of slavery was like, oh, you're beaten with whips and you're made to build the pyramids. No, people sold themselves into slavery. And that's exactly what happened to Joseph. He was sold into slavery. Now, did that happen? Unfortunately, yes, there were people who did that to their slaves, but not everyone did that. Not everyone practiced that. And again, God made regulations so that you wouldn't do that. He's not allowing you to beat your slave. He's saying that if you do it, you're going to get punished for it. There's a verse in the past that says, if you beat someone, eye for eye. Eye for eye. If you hit their eye and it's bruised, you will get your eye bruised. People were very serious about handling these things back then, and they weren't just going to let it slide. Plus, if you were to harm your slave, they could go free because you had no right to do that to them. They're not your property in the sense that you just get to do whatever you want to them. They are under your command, under your rule, but they're human beings. This is just so disingenuous. You just looked up verses that look like they condone slavery and said, oh yeah, God just likes slavery, right? This is like reading the Hunger Games and just saying that Katniss Everdeen is a murderer because she killed people in a situation where everyone was killing everyone, called the Hunger Games, also known as a 1v1v1v1v1v1v1v1v1v1v1 to the death, where you have no choice but to kill someone or be killed. And I guarantee you'd kill somebody if they were trying to kill you. I guarantee that. I'm certain you're not so peaceful that you're a pacifist. But beyond the fact, getting back to my point, I could sit here all day and tell you why each and every one of these points is wrong, but I'm just gonna, like, the last one I'll answer, the concubines one. I'll answer that one too. But like, holy guys, just look up stuff. Like, if you have questions, just ask them. Which, these aren't questions. These are just you saying blatant that God is unjust, even though we as humans actually invented these things. We as humans invented rape. We as humans invented sexual assault. We as humans invented slavery. God is regulating it, and here's the thing. He's regulating it because he knows telling us to stop doing it isn't going to be enough. He knows that. He knows that. Right? Love your neighbor as yourself. Do you think that treating someone as a slave is really loving your neighbor as yourself? No, but we do it anyway. We do it anyway, even though God told us not to. Right? What's the fourth thing I was going to say? What else did we invent as humans? We invented gambling. We invented drinking, smoking till we're high, drinking till we're drunk. We invented all these things. And what God's trying to do is regulate it, because he's trying to regulate it because he knows just telling us isn't enough. And it isn't. It clearly isn't, because we just still do all the stuff he tells us not to do. So he regulates it. And he regulates it because he knows there are people who are very evil and will manipulate it in such a way that they benefit from it. So let's get this next one. This is Concubines, Genesis 16, 3 and 4. Let's go to it. Shoot. Okay, so we're at Genesis 16, 3 and 4. Now Sarai, Abraham's wife, had borne him no children, and she had an Egyptian maidservant whose name was Hagar. So Okay, so first of all, this is again going back to the fact that they had slaves from Egypt that were gifted to them by Pharaoh, which they didn't have to keep those slaves. They could have said no. And they should have. So, one thing, the Bible is a book of history, so it's going to tell you what happened, right? You're going to see stuff that is condoned and is not condoned by God. For example, when it tells you that Dinah was raped, God is not condoning that. It's him telling Moses, who wrote that book, to write about it because it happened and it's not okay. There are plenty of times you're going to read the Bible where someone's doing something that they shouldn't be doing. For example, when David slept with Bathsheba, he had no right to be doing that. But the Bible makes kind of it because it wasn't okay. You're supposed to learn from the Bible. That's the whole point of it. So, good Lord, bro. Genesis 16, now Sarah, Abraham's wife, had borne him no children, and she had an Egyptian maidservant whose name was Hagar. So Sarai said to Abraham, see, now the Lord has restrained me from bearing children. Even though previously God told Abraham, if you just sit down for 5 seconds and wait, I will let you have children. Anyway, please go to my maid. Perhaps I shall obtain children by her, which makes no sense because those aren't her children. Those are his children. And Abraham heeded the voice of Sarah. Abraham had no business sleeping with someone else who wasn't his wife. This was completely on him. He was supposed to lead her, not the other way around. Then Sarah took Abraham's wife, took Hagar, her maid, the Egyptian, and gave her to her husband Abraham to be her wife. And Abraham had dwelt 10 years in the land of Canaan. So he went to Hagar, and she conceived. And when he saw that she conceived, her mistress became despised in her eyes. So this is pointing to the fact that even though Sarah was the one who came up with this idea, she was pissed off that Abraham was happy that she had a child. This is completely Sarai's fault and Abraham's fault. They had no business doing this. God told them to wait. God's covenant with Abraham. Oh my gosh, but like, just read the Bible. Would you have read a whole chapter before this? You would tell that God, just because God doesn't strike someone down with lightning doesn't mean he instantly condones what they're doing, by the way. Like, he's not Zeus. He's not freaking Thor. He's not going to smite you because you're doing what you shouldn't be doing. Now, there are cases where he does that, but it's a specific case, and it's a specific scenario. Good Lord, bro, just read. Like, just read. That's all you got to do. Don't use ChatGPT to look up verses. Don't go to chat and go like, find verses that condone slavery in the Bible. Like, I bet you even ChatGPT will be able to explain each one of these verses. Of course, it's a complex. I don't care, chat. Let's look at these verses that are controversial. Hebrew slaves, if you buy who be servant, he's to serve you for 6 years, but in 7 years he shall go and free. And let's see what chat says. This is a complex and historical significant topic. The Bible contains verses that describe, regulate, and sometimes condone the practice of slavery, which was a common institution in the ancient world. It's crucial to understand that these texts reflect the social and economic norms of their time, not necessarily a divine endorsement of for all time, but even beyond that, it's not a divine endorsement for any time. He wasn't endorsing it. He was just saying, if you do it, you're going to do it this way. You're not going to just treat people the way you want to treat them because you're not treating them well in the first place. It's explicitly describes a slave as property, and it establishes a lesser penalty for killing a slave than for killing a free person. And again, if they murder this person, which is Exodus 20:21, anyone who beats their male or female slave with a rod must be punished. If the slave dies, the well, they are to be there, but they are not to be punished if the slave recovers after 2 days. So again, this is the punishment they're talking about in this case. He doesn't have to be killed, but this slave will go free. This slave is not going to be under this person anymore because everyone's going to say, okay, you're not being just at all to this person. This person sold themselves into slavery to you to work for you and get money. So you're not going to just keep beating this person unjustly. You're going to be punished by this, right? He wouldn't be punished by the penalty of death, but he'd be punished, all right. And I know this because specifically before that, it mentioned the fact that an eye for an eye, right? There are plenty of verses in the Bible that talk about this stuff. And like, again, if you actually read the entire book through and then had questions and then looked them up and got answers, there are hundreds of thousands of people over the past 200 years who have been studying this and understand this. And you want to just make your own opinion on it and say, nah, and say, screw all what you guys did research on. I'm going to say my own thing. Like, it doesn't make any sense at all. You wouldn't do that with science. You wouldn't do it with anything else. You especially wouldn't do that with science. If a bunch of scientists told you why gravity exists and how the earth is round, you wouldn't just sit and say, nah, I read something that said the earth is flat. Matter of fact, I know the earth is flat because I don't believe what happened in space. I don't believe that when they went to the moon, they confirmed the earth. I don't think that, no, they never went to the moon. That's false. They never saw the earth. The earth isn't round. It's not a globe, even though everything that we know supports the fact that the earth is a globe. But now I'm not even going to get to that. Anyway, which again, the earth moves at about 1,000+ miles an hour. So for it to be doing that, it would have to be a globe in the first place. But beyond the point. Again, I could sit here all day and explain these to you, but if you don't want to sit there and listen, that's completely up to you guys. This is a response to both these comments, because especially this comment. This is ridiculous. He just literally just copied and pasted what he said before 3 weeks ago and put it in 12 days ago. So completely disingenuous. To the second person who responded to this, I'm going to take you a little bit more seriously. But again, I've explained these first two to you. I'm not gonna make this video for 40 minutes. It's coming up on 30 literally as I speak. As of this very second, it is now 30. So yeah, just read the Bible. You have questions, look it up, bro. It's not that hard. Like, you wouldn't sit there and do a math problem and say, "Oh, this math problem makes no sense. I don't understand it. It's wrong." You would ask a teacher for help, and you would say, "Hey, I know there's got to be some way to access all this problem. Can you help me?" You wouldn't just sit there and say, "Oh, well, actually, it doesn't make sense." No, you would sit there and ask them for help, and they would help you. So yeah, I'm done. I'm done. Seriously, bro. Do research. Not that hard. I pray for you guys. Like, seriously, I pray for you guys. Genuinely.